All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Worldwide Travel Podcast. My name is Dave Canyon. I'm here from New York in the United States, and I'm going to introduce you to our panel and our guest. On one side of me, you can see Alexandra, who is with us from Romania,
Right.
correct? There you go. And the actual host of the show and founder is Luke, who's coming to us from, hopefully I won't mess this up, from Milton Keynes in the UK. And Luke, why don't you introduce yourself and your guest, our
So
guest?
I spoke with Vitor on Facebook. Vitor's from Portugal, but now he lives in Ireland. And you have your own podcast as well, Vitor.
That's all right. So, thanks for the invite. I'm delighted to be here. I'm very much into travel myself. One of the pieces we cover in my podcast is travel. It's maybe 20-30%, if not more. I'm also a travel writer myself. I'm an author of 12 published books, and the vast majority are travel related. Like, they are not the classical travel book. I usually introduce myself as a travel writer with a twist, but we can explore that. And yeah, and I'm in Ireland for 8 years now.
8 years.
Yeah.
Nice. So what I wanted to start with is, when I think of Portugal, the thing that stands out to me is, well, for example, in Paris you have the Eiffel Tower, in Rome you have the Colosseum. In Lisbon, what stands out to me is the trams of Lisbon.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, the tram. You probably are referring to the yellow tram,
Yeah.
the old ones. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are quite popular. They are known for good and bad reasons. I'll start with the bad that we finish this topic with a positive note. So the bad is a lot of thieves. You know, they know that the tram is crowded with tourists, so often someone board the tram with a bag, but drop the tram without the bag. So that's something that happens very, very often. Same with wallets, same with jewelry. So it happens quite a lot. So if there's someone listening to us and is heading to Lisbon any soon, yes, take that tram. Yes, take pictures, but keep an eye on your belongings because you want to make sure that you will drop the tram with the same stuff that you board. Now, on a positive note, the routes are fantastic because they take you to some of the most stunning streets in Lisbon, say the the old town where you can see Portuguese architecture, has in balconies, windows, um, all sorts of aesthetical details that are related to our history. So, and then you can just drop, like, and go for a walk, and there are interesting taverns or coffee shops or beautiful viewpoints where you can admire the river, which is huge. It's almost like a sea. Like if you think of the Tagus, which is the name of the river, like you think it's a sea because it's massive. So yeah, the trams is for sure an icon.
Um, just to go back to what you were saying a bit earlier, is that still the case with pickpocketing? I guess it didn't really feel that way when I was there like this about a couple years ago. To be honest, it felt pretty safe. I mean, of course, you would have to, pay attention to your surroundings, right? Exercise normal precautions, but it didn't really strike me as particularly, I don't know, unsafe. So do you think that's still like? Do you think that maybe it gets a bad rap from like past, I guess past issues, or is it like really still such a big deal? Because personally I didn't really feel that way at all.
Yeah, well, it still happens for sure. Maybe it's not as bad as it was in the past. And as you said, these things are hard to erase. Once it's a common thing, people always remember that. And
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
believe that to an extent it's still a threat, and the reason is they kept it on the tram, so there is some notice for people, like look after your belongings, check out to whom you are talking. There are all sorts of message for people. So I believe, yeah, it's still the case, but perhaps it's safer now than it was, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of, that's the case with my country as well. I don't know if you already discussed this, but I'm from Romania, right? So you will see in the media, a lot of bad stuff about Romania sometimes, and a lot of it is, things that were definitely true in the past, and that reputation kind of, stuck with us. But nowadays things are much, much better. So I'm thinking, whenever I hear that maybe this place or that place is dangerous or whatever, unsafe, I always wonder, is that really the case, or maybe it was like something that used to happen and it's gotten better, but I guess the media hasn't caught up to it yet.
Yeah, look, just on Romania, Mike. I've been to Romania, I think it was 3 times altogether. Yeah, and
Oh,
I felt very, very safe. Maybe
right.
one of the safest places I visit in Europe. Yeah, like I've been to Bucharest, Cluj-Napoca, and Oradea, and I never felt that I was on the radar. I mean, for being robbed, not at all. And we were
Right.
out, we were out in the evening. We went to bars. Some of them were nice, some of them were just decent, let's say. But no, I never felt that something bad is about to happen. And I'm usually conscious of what I'm doing, but I didn't feel that
Yeah.
it could go wrong.
Right, right. But to go back to Portugal, yeah, like safety-wise, I think it was pretty good. But regarding what you mentioned about it being, a very walkable city, that's kind of what surprised me as well, right? Because it's one of the big capitals of Europe, and you would expect it to be this huge place. You always have to use a means of transportation. That's not really the case at all. Of course, do take the tram because it's a staple. It's this thing that's super super popular. That Lisbon is known for, but it's actually a really walkable city. Like I was
Yeah,
able to just pretty much get there without having to use means of transportation.
yeah.
So really, I really like that.
So, one of the most beautiful views I've ever experienced whilst travelling was in Porto, from the Louis Bridge, looking at the Douro River.
Yeah, it's a fantastic view, but I'm going to be very biased. My favorite is the football stadium because I'm a big FC Porto fan. But that's just me. That's unbeatable. But that's just me, who is a fanatic fan of Porto. Even though I'm from Lisbon, which is kind of a tricky one. It's like, let's say in Romania, you are from Bucharest and you cheer for Cluj-Napoca. You get into trouble. You get into trouble. So anyway, we can talk about that later. That view is amazing. Like the view that you just described is one of my favorite. Like one thing is the nature, another one is the city itself. So it's a perfect combination between urban and some more let's say nature or green kind of thing, and it's fantastic. And Porto offers more of an authentic experience of Portugal than Lisbon, which is normal because Lisbon is the capital, so of course it's exposed to all sorts of international influence, which of course it's good, but it has the downside of damaging the identity.
Um, what would you consider the best thing to do, the best thing to see whilst in Portugal?
Best thing to do or to see? Well, I think it's the ocean. The ocean is something unique. In Europe, you can only see the ocean, if I'm not mistaken, in Portugal, Ireland, and I think in France as well. But we are on the western, we have the western point, so we are as much in the ocean as Europe can be. And the ocean is just something that you can just stare at, listen, perceive the smells. So it's a whole experience of beauty through everything that a human can access. So I could just spend the whole day by the ocean, ideally not during summer because the seaside will be crowded, but mid-season when the weather is pleasant, and the place is relatively quiet. So I would say like go and stare at the ocean, because there is something magical about seeing something and you don't know exactly what is there, because there is this whole thing of being yourself and an horizon, and you just can let your imagination takes you wherever it takes you, and feel how small we are in the universe, and understand that sometimes it's good to understand our own size, to appreciate the beauty of living.
After doing some research this week, I noticed Lisbon is a very similar size to Barcelona, and I have some stats here. Over the last 3 years, the growth of Lisbon is massive. So in 2021, there was 545,000 people in Lisbon. Now there's more than 3 million. But in Barcelona, the growth wasn't so massive. There was a similar sized city. So in 2021, it was 1.628 million, and now 1.686 million. So what do you put that down to, the huge growth of Lisbon?
Yeah, so I think, look, I lived in Barcelona, just as a reference for people, so I think I have some advantage when it comes to compare both. I haven't lived in Lisbon itself. I lived in a suburb or a commuter city, but I spent like most of my early 20s in Lisbon when it comes to going to university, hanging out with my friends, working. So I can say that I'm almost a Lisbon boy, even though I haven't actually lived there. The reason why Lisbon grew that much, and it's kind of weird because Barcelona it's more known, and I think it lies on the fact that for some time, maybe for a couple of decades, Lisbon was not on the spot. It was kind of a hidden gem that most tourists heard about it, but we are not really willing to go there because, let's say, one of the main reasons is Ryanair was not flying there. We all know that the moment Ryanair flies to a destination, the whole thing changes. It's like a revolution. There's a radical transformation in any city, and Lisbon, of course, couldn't be different. For after Ryanair started to have Lisbon in the destinations. So I think the major reason for that is that the airport opened up. I think they probably decreased the taxes and all that. And of course, then it's not just Ryanair. Like the moment that there are tourists, hostels erupted everywhere, and with hostels like low-cost restaurants and all sorts of things that are accessible for people that a couple of years ago, or a couple of decades ago, only the elite could access. So I think what drove was probably the low-cost structure that didn't exist in the past.
And you also have this digital nomad visa that Portugal has been offering for a few years now, and so it's become a really attractive destination for a lot of digital nomads from around the world who pretty much drove the costs up for locals, as far as I know, in terms of rent and things like that. But for everybody else coming from abroad, it's a great deal, right? Because you get great views, a lot of beautiful places to visit, low prices. It's absolutely amazing. I did that myself. I was a digital nomad in Portugal. I definitely understand why it's become such a popular destination. But it's true that you didn't used to hear that much about it as a spot as a must visit spot, right? So it's definitely become, I think, pretty abruptly, and so it's become so popular that it actually got to be a bit of an issue for the locals, as far as I understand. So not really sure what is the perception, what is the locals' point of view on the fact that everything just kind of blew up in popularity when it comes to Portugal and Lisbon in specific.
It's funny because people are tricky. I remember when I lived there that we used to say, yeah, all the tourists go to Spain and then they go to Portugal, and we'll be sad and frustrated. What's wrong with us? Why we cannot get the same attention? Why we don't attract the similar number of tourists as the neighbor? And we would feel that we were overlooked. Okay, so that was the feeling. Now tourists start to come. People were happy at the beginning because there was more to do. There were in terms of employment, there were additional opportunities. So it was positive. But like with most things, after a while, people start to feel that the place is not for them anymore because price-wise, they want to eat local food, and local food barely exists because all we have is burgers and hot dogs and pizzas and things like that. And nothing wrong with that, as long as there is space for the local stuff. You know, I'm a big fan of burgers. I don't eat hot dogs, but I love pizza. I try to avoid because we all know that it's not the best for your weight. If it wasn't for that, I could eat a pizza every day. Yeah, so there is something that comes with massive tourism that it's not positive because it just takes over the place identity, and somehow it becomes just another touristic spot.
Right, right. And since you mentioned food, actually, that's something that I've noticed as well. There are a few dishes, I think, that are advertised as traditional, I guess. But for the most part, exactly like you said, like you'd find a lot of burger places or pizza or like international, just international food places. So, like, what are some, I guess, traditional dishes other than the steak? That's more Brazilian, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
I don't know what to call it, picanha. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. But
Yeah,
that's more Brazilian. That's very popular in
picanha,
Portugal.
yeah.
So what else is there that's more traditional?
Yeah, I would never, like, since I'm in Ireland, I would never eat steak anywhere else in Europe other than in Ireland. It's just, and I'm not being sponsored to say that by anyone. It's just a fact. Yeah. Maybe the steak in, I don't know, I have a lot of cows in Switzerland, but the best steak, if I can give a tip for people here, is Ireland, Brazil, and Argentina. But if you are in Europe, then stick to Ireland. Portugal,
Really?
it's fish,
Ireland,
fresh
okay.
fish.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was just surprised to hear that about Ireland. I was not. I didn't expect that, I guess.
Yeah, best steak ever. So I'm happy with burgers. Going back to the burger, but staying ourselves in Portugal, I think that the main perk of the Portuguese cuisine is fish. And what I mean by fish is fresh fish. Like the variety is massive. Like you could eat a different fish, say, every day of the month. If you are a fish eater, you are in paradise. And that's probably the thing I miss the most from being away from Portugal, is fresh fish. Now Ireland is not that bad. Okay, I lived in Hungary and Poland, and I kind of struggle a bit because they are landlocked. Poland is not, but the coast is very very tiny. But in Hungary, like the access to fresh fish was just not happening. So fresh fish is amazing. I would say fresh fish. And the main fish that we eat is cod. So they can come up with all sorts of cod. It seems like poetry.
I did have the pudding, the cod pudding. I have mixed feelings about it. But it is, it is a traditional dish, so I did have to try it out. Probably trying it out for, just one time is enough for me. Yeah, I did notice that a lot of fish dishes. And to your point earlier about food in Eastern Europe, like Poland and this part of the world, I don't really. I'm not a big fan of it either. So just so you know, we don't really. Like we know, like here in Eastern Europe, we know that there's no way to promote our food as being like this amazing. So
I
totally
would
get it.
politely disagree with you because I lived in Hungary and Poland, and I was a happy man, a happy and fat man, but more happy than fat. And I never complained about the cuisine other than the absence of fresh fish. I was delighted. I was absolutely,
Really?
yeah. I'm not being cute for the viewers or anything like that. I absolutely mean it. I said it. I wrote it publicly, and I will say it over and over again. I'm a big fan of the. In Romania, the same. I always came back from Romania with a couple of kilos and a smile in my face, and that's why
Oh.
I'm actually going to. I think I told Luke this. I'm actually going to a Romanian wedding in August,
Oh
and I
wow.
look forward for that. And one of the things I look forward is the food. Yeah. So
Yeah, well, maybe the wedding is different, because with weddings, everyone's trying to prepare like 7 dishes and like really impress the guests
yeah.
with the complexity, I suppose, of the dishes. But outside of that, I don't know. I mean, again, mixed feelings about that one too. But happy that you enjoyed it, and definitely looking forward to hearing your thoughts on a traditional Romanian wedding. That's quite the. Have you ever been in one before? I mean, not necessarily Romanian, but like a wedding.
Yeah, I've been to Hungarian wedding,
Okay.
two actually, two as I remember. Yeah, my wedding portfolio is quite poor, I have to say. I think that was it, and a few in Portugal, but I couldn't write a book about the weddings I attended, and I'm not married myself, so my wedding experience is yeah, it's barely nothing.
Um, in Portugal, there's a very famous library, and it was rumored that it inspired Hogwarts, but that's actually been rubbished by J.K. Rowling. Do you know about this library?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Do you recall the name or
It's
where is it?
Lelo something
Uh, that's
in Porto, I think.
I think it's actually a bookshop, if I remember well. Yes, yes, yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, yeah, Lelo, like that's a place where you wanna go and visit if you like books as much as I do, or you are into literature, or or books as an object, because there's something about the book smell. Okay, like I nothing against like e-books or audiobooks, but I think uh, the experience of the fact that books are tangible makes them very special in my estimation. And Lelo has that, and it's the stairs and the ceiling and all that. Yeah, it's an absolute must. Even if you don't buy a book, go there and visit. It's for free, I think. So yeah, go for it. I absolutely recommend. Yeah. Were you
I
there,
think it's not
Luke?
for free.
Not for free.
I was there, yeah.
Maybe they just charge you. They took advantage of you.
I think you need to pay like €5, but then you get a voucher for a book as well. So it's basically free.
Yeah, 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 that makes sense. Yeah, if you can then use it. Yeah.
Can I ask? I just want to be clear because before you came on, we had a conversation. Is it Vitor or is it Vitor?
I've been asked that multiple times.
Yeah.
I'm used to that question. I actually have a friend, an Irish friend, who called me Vitor. It's Vitor, but used to call me Vitor for ages, and I had to correct
Okay.
him
Right.
for for ages as well. And finally, he calls me Vitor, and we start to be on the beer. Sometimes he mixes it, but it's actually
Right.
Vitor. Yeah, not
Right.
Vitor. Yeah.
So, Vitor, pleasure to meet you. Tell us about these books. I think you mentioned 12 books. We're talking 12 ebooks, or we're talking about novels, travel, and you said they were with a twist. So maybe you can help us out a little bit and explain these books and where we can find it, what they're about, and how long you've been doing it, all of that. There's a lot of information there, obviously. 12 books.
Yeah, yeah. So, what I mean by being a travel writer with a twist, that most of them they are not just a classical memoir. Let's say I went to Romania and I wrote a book about what I experienced there. I have that, but I also used my travel experience to write poetry, plays, novels, fiction, short stories, all sorts. So it's not always just uh, telling the reader what happened to me when I was in Transylvania, but also using that material and converting it to poetry or to a short story. Of course, those stories they'll be inspired in my own interactions, say, with Romanians in Transylvania, but they won't be pure memoir. So I have different things. I have like I would highlight just for now my memoir about the time I lived in Budapest. It's a it's quite interesting. It's like I put it as a dating book because that was the age I was very much into Tinder and all sorts of things. Okay, and so what I did a a collection of the dates I had, and I went through one after another. But it was not just saying, okay, I went and I met that girl who had a drink. No, there's a whole background that needs to be explained. Like, I'm an expat, so I was struggling with the language, but somehow we managed to get along. And sometimes it was an advantage, sometimes it was a challenge. So it's more from a psychological perspective than just telling that, I went on a date here and there and this happened or not happened. So
Do you have
that
any
story,
do you have any tangible copies to show us?
unfortunately for the moment, you want me to show you the copy? I have
Sure.
one. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, whatever you have.
Yeah.
It's a good chance to show us.
And
Visual is always good with the audio.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
yeah,
Luke.
plug your stuff. Yeah, sell it.
Yeah, go ahead. We got time. We can do all 12 books. So there you go.
Unfortunately, it's still in Portuguese. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I have
so
one book in English. It's a poetry book about an Irish Jewish painter called Harry Kernoff. It's called Harry Kernoff's Guest, and that's a book inspired. It's a book inspired by his paintings, but he was an expat himself, so the travel element is there, although it's not as evident as it is on this one. This is a pure
uh,
travel book.
show us that book and give us the title. So this way we can all see it and read it at the same time. And what do you call that?
The title in Portuguese will be A Beira do Danúbio, okay? And that
Okay.
is translated beside the Danube. Yeah,
All right.
and I have other stuff. I have a book about my first time in Israel called Israel's Spell. So that's, I think, and then I have
All right.
a book called not Fury, A Rage of Travel, which is basically going through a few trips I did when I was in my 20s. I was still naive and trying to find my way when I was abroad. Don't know, there are plenty. I have a poetry book um, about the time I lived in Poland, and that is being translated to Polish, and hopefully will be published in quarter 3. And yeah,
Are they all through the same publisher? Or you
no,
self-publish or
no, this one was published in Brazil, for instance. Um, I have stuff published here. I have a couple of stuff published in one that is. I have a book about the time I spent in Barcelona called "Survival in Barcelona." That is being translated to Spanish. I have stuff translated in English, Spanish, Polish, Hungarian, and I'm hoping to have one in Estonian by the end of the year. So, but if there's any Romanian that are interested, just be in touch.
right? And
That
and
is
and and is that your living? You're a writer, or you do all the stuff and you're writing?
No, I would be a happier man. That would
Right.
be the
Right.
case.
Okay.
I'm leaning that direction. With the podcast and other stuff, I'm trying to live out of my creativity and also giving a hand to other creatives. So I would like to um, explore the fact that I have experience and knowledge that I gain, on my dealings to help others and also make some money out of that.
Right. So your name is Vitor Vicente, right? Is that pronounced the last name Vicente? But I see the menorah behind you.
Yeah.
Is that just a gift? Can you explain how this menorah comes into Mr. Vincente's life?
See, actually, the menorah was a gift of my ex-girlfriend, Hungarian. Um, she actually offered me that and a cat. I have a cat that might jump here at some point. His name is Hanukkah, like the Jewish holiday Hanukkah, Hanukkah cat. So there's a few Jewish elements around this.
Oh, a cat. Did you say cat?
Yeah.
Yes, cat.
Oh,
And
okay,
also,
okay. All right.
also
All right.
has, and I was thinking like maybe a kiddush cup that you use for, blessings. But a cat, a little cat. Okay, that's
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right,
cat.
right.
Yeah. So
Right, right, right.
he might show up at some point.
Okay. But a menorah is I mean, I'm Jewish, so I have a menorah that I inherited from my
Shabbat shalom.
grandparents and all that. Thank you. But to get a gift, that's an interesting gift. Is there a story behind that?
Yeah, so she's Jewish. Uh,
Okay.
I'm not, but I consider myself Jewish by heart. If you probably heard the story from others, I'm very connected to Judaism for maybe now 15 years. That was something that started when I was actually traveling. When I've been to Prague to celebrate my 25th birthday, and I try to make this story short because there's a lot to it. And I found myself. So I went to Prague for two reasons. Okay, one was Franz Kafka because I was always fascinated by his books, and the second is I grew up in a communist family. Okay, and I was always interested. A communist father, let's put it like that. And I was always interested in seeing the former communist countries myself. And so when I finally had the time, I decided I'm going to celebrate my birthday in Prague. But what came across in Prague was not communism, was Franz Kafka, but not as much as the Jewish district. So I find myself that I was home, and since then I visited like multiple Jewish districts worldwide, and I always have this sensation. Same when I go to Israel. So I share this story with other people. I don't know if my family was Jewish in the past, or there is something in my DNA that is telling me a story. There are a couple of interesting facts in my family that might suggest that. So they both come from a region where most Jews were living before the Inquisition, okay, so around 15th century. And the other funny fact is that they share the same surname, as you know, it's a Jewish thing, no? So both grandparents have the surname of Rosa, which is the Portuguese for Rothschild. So maybe there is something there, I don't know, but the connection is here. So I've been to Israel like, I don't know, 5-6 times. I'm planning to go again in June, with or without war. If there is war, they can count on me for whatever I can do. So yeah, I'm very big into Judaism and Israel myself.
Good for you. Good for you. And but when you travel, you keep kosher, or is
No,
that not a priority?
no, no, no. I don't eat kosher, but I don't. I avoid. I avoid. I avoid
Pork.
pork. For instance, I cut pork of my life for maybe 15 years now. I barely eat seafood, as in shrimps or things like that. So I I'm kosher to an extent. So it's more of a journey than anything else. If it happens that I bite by accident shrimp, it's okay. Life goes on. But I try to be as kosher as possible.
I just
So
had bacon 5 minutes ago. Before we came on the air, I just had bacon and eggs.
I
So
hope I hope God is not listening.
it's okay. It's
I,
okay.
it's
He knows it's been 60 years of me not being kosher, so he's got the message. But it's all good. And so, unless anybody else wants to ask you a question, I'm really curious about Israel because it is an interesting place to visit. It's on my list, to go there. Jerusalem, especially. Um, so, can you tell us your favorite spot in Israel, or where do you tend to go back more often, or what you would recommend for us? Because that's a really tangible location that a lot of people know about, but it's always, Middle East, it's involved in something one way or the other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think Israel is the most misrepresented place on earth, like especially by the media.
Okay.
I don't want to get political here, but I think the way that Israel is portrayed is absolutely wrong. And I'm not going to get into occupation, none of that. I'm just saying that when they sell the idea that the place is dangerous, it's not. It's it's more friends these days to go to Brussels or Paris than to Israel, and the reason is if something bad happens in Israel, they know how to respond. They are
Right.
prepared. They
Right.
are prepared. I know October the 7th
Terrible.
was something horrendous and terrible, but overall, if things go wrong, the authorities know how to react. So, like if your concern, or the public concern, is safety, don't don't detain yourself. Pack and go. Israel is absolutely a place where you can feel safe. You can just feel safe. That's no problem. Like for a woman, fine. For for uh, for the gay community, great. For an old person, no problem. It's very very open and welcoming. And doesn't matter if you are Jewish or not. Like I never hide when I go there. Like everyone thinks I'm Jewish. Of course, I'm delighted with that. But it's a place that I encourage everyone to visit and to see it with their own eyes. Now, my favorite is Jerusalem, because I have this holy connection to Judaism myself, and for me, there's no place like the Jewish district in Jerusalem. So that's one. But even if you don't have that, I encourage people to go because it's history, and history is part of us, like us or not. Like you cannot just set it aside.
Yeah. You've been to the Wailing Wall?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been there
Can,
multiple
can
times.
give us a quick feeling about standing there? It's always crowded, right?
Yeah,
And I don't know what you call it, if there's a name for it, but you leave a message, you put it in the wall. I'm assuming they're still doing that.
yeah,
I don't know, maybe you could share a personal moment that you've had. I am
yeah.
assuming when you get there and you see that wall, you see all these people, it's got to be quite emotional or passion is, or it's not just stepping up to the view. I mean, you're feeling something, maybe your
Big time.
deepest moment, a connection. I don't know, share with us.
So as you said, Dave, it's very crowded. Like for the for the vast majority of the week, it's very very crowded, especially around Shabbat times. So, but even if you go there on a Monday morning, it's going to be crowded. Uh, but the beauty of it, and I don't know why is that, but it's something I cannot I cannot forget that you arrive to the place and it's crowded. Okay, but the moment that you approach the wall, it just turns to everything turns to silence. I don't know how. I really don't know how, but that's at least that's what I experienced that others did. It seems like all of a sudden just yourself and God, and people are there. You might listen someone praying or I don't know complaining about the weather or whatever, but it's it's a life changing. It doesn't matter the noise. All of a sudden, it's like noise cancellation. It's just yourself and the divine, or whatever it is. It's just silence. So I encourage everyone to visit the Western Wall. They now have a female section, which I'm not. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Which I'm not very much in favor of because I don't think it makes much sense. I think it's not the same impact. If I would be a woman, I would go to the original stuff. I didn't go
Is
around.
there have there been rules about that in the past? Like, was
Yes.
it just, oh, it's only been a male dominated place to go? Is
No.
that
So there. So the wall is divided between the male and female, and there is an actual wall in the middle, a man-made wall. And then I think they came up with a third part that is actually, or is it mixed? Now I can't remember. Just I like the idea to visit the original because that's where the upcoming temple, if it happens in our lifetime or whenever it's going to occur, it's going to be built. So that's the place. That's the place. But if you're not into Judaism, go. And I enjoy going to the Christian quarter. I enjoy going to the Muslim quarter to an extent. And it's very rare that there is some actual clash between the communities in that part of Jerusalem. So it's absolutely safe. And then there are places that are absolutely stunning, like the Dead Sea. And the Dead Sea is a geographical miracle. Like I was swimming, or you don't swim in the Dead Sea, I was floating in the Dead Sea on 31st of December. So
wow?
how is that possible, for us in the northern hemisphere? It's fantastic. I'm a big fan of Haifa as well
Hyphen.
when it comes to seaside. The Golan Heights, it's a place that you can really feel that you are part of the nature and nature is part of you. So I was at the border with Syria. That was also something to keep for the rest of my life. Tel Aviv is cool, but like most big cities, it's kind of taken by tourism. But I would go. Yeah,
Wow.
there's a lot. There's a lot. There's Israel is a very tiny country, even though the world now is too large. But anyway, it's another topic for another time. Uh, but
Hmm.
it has everything. There's everything: history, seaside, nightlife, food, civilization. Everything. Everything is there.
Great.
Everything is
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I didn't mean to take us off track, but it's every week. Last week, Alexandra gave us everything about Romania, and we didn't know that Romania we declared was the most underestimated or underappreciated or unpromoted country in the world. So we learned a lot about Romania, and we've learned about many countries. So this is the first time we've really had anybody tell us about Israel. It is a very curious spot, and the fact that you say it's misrepresented, I think you said,
there.
right,
Yes. Yes.
is important to know because Luke's original intention for this entire show is dispelling myths. And there you go, Luke, a
Totally.
successful episode there. You've helped dispel the myth of Israel.
Yeah. That.
And I got a million other questions, but I don't want to dominate the show.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Vito.
I just want to say, look, like, I think that's a great mission. If that's what you have, man, best of luck with that. Because there's one thing I do with my writing, with my podcast, with my communications in general. I like to tell the truth, no matter what. Okay, and I fight misinformation as much as I fight the devil. I think the devil is misinformation, because accessing real life and real things are one of the best blessings that one can have. So if you can keep yourself authentic, surrounded by people that are real, know what you stand for and all that, man, you are living the dream.
So
Great.
when I travel, I like to experience history and culture. So Israel was perfect for that. I've been to Istanbul. I'm not Muslim. Israel's on the list. I'm not Jewish either. It's just I'm open to any kind of travel.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's the way. That's the way. But if you are not open, why do you bother getting off the couch?
Yeah.
I don't get the point. Like I remember, I mean, people do whatever they want with their lives. I'm no one to judge, okay? But I hope I'm not hurting anyone's feelings with this. But I remember being in Jerusalem, in George, in the Christian Quarter. So myself and my girlfriend were eating in the Georgian restaurant, and there was someone ordering like spaghetti. I'm like, why are you ordering like bolognese here? Really? Why are you ordering that? I don't
Yeah.
understand. I mean, I'm no one to tell people what to do, what to eat, what to think. I'm all about people's free will and all that. But to me, it was just it was not wrong, but it
A
was
missed
weird.
opportunity, right?
Yeah,
You're supposed to be coming here to learn,
yeah,
and so you're just sticking to what you're comfortable with, and that's just a missed opportunity to expand your horizon, right?
Yeah. So, Vito, you've been in a lot of locations, and you're still basically a young man. Tell us, was there a moment in that's a compliment. Tell us, at what point in your life did you know that you were going to travel, or did it just happen? And when did you know that you were going to be writing and doing poetry and mixing it all together? Did it just happen, or was there an intention when you were younger? Was there an inspiration?
Mm. Okay, I'm gonna start by answering the last question. So I started writing when I was 16. Uh, what happened was I was very much into rock, heavy metal, and all that. The hair is gone, but
Me
what to do
too.
about that, Dave? Yes, what to do about that? And I didn't know how to play an instrument, but I wanted to be part of the band. And sorry for the comment of accent, but I want to attract girls' attention, and I couldn't play football, which is the way to attract attention in Portugal. So I was very bad. So I said, I'm gonna learn an instrument. I failed again. I was as bad as playing an instrument. I was playing football. So I said, I'm gonna sing. That's it. Give me the microphone. I'm
Right.
gonna sing. So I tried. I tried to sing. Singing I was okay, but not to the degree that I could be famous. But I was pretty good, at least that was what I gathered from others, at writing the lyrics. So I was very good at that. Singing, not as much. But my lyrics were way above the average, just to be modest. So I said, maybe there's something here for me, the writing. I can set aside all the instruments and the football fantasies, and I'm going to stick into writing. And another thing is when I was composing lyrics, I, I wanted to get inspiration. So and I the way I pursue it was to um, read read interviews of my favorite singers and see what kind of authors would they refer. So they were saying, "Oh, I'm a big fan of Charles Baudelaire or Jean-Arthur Rimbaud, all these French poets, crazy from the 19th century." So I started to read them, and then I felt this is my crowd. So I started to read. The more I was reading, the more I was writing. So I've been writing since I was 16. Okay, and at some point I gave up on the music, and I stick to writing. I had a publisher myself in my early 20s in Portugal. I'm thinking to get back to that, and so then the travel element came a bit later. So I left Portugal when I was 23. I left by accident. I was just unemployed, no positive expectations, and we can talk about that how I left Portugal. But anyway, my second job in Barcelona was airport staff. Okay, so I was working at the luggage desk. So let's say you are traveling from New York to LA, and you arrive to LA with a smile, but your luggage doesn't arrive. So you come to me and and have the choice.
Right.
So that
Wow.
was the moment that I could finally step in travel, and I had like staff discounts and all that. So I I had the luxury of traveling around Europe for very little money. Like I remember I flew to Athens for 30 euros, back and forth. I mean, this was like uh, 15 years ago or more, but still it's nothing. Luggage included and all that. Amsterdam, 15 euros back and forth. So I traveled a lot around Europe, and then I started writing about it. Like finally, I can make something out of the writing because I can offer. Because back in the days, we're talking about 2008, around 2008, like low cost, they were not a thing as they are now. So I could offer something to the reader that most people couldn't, at least in my age and my circle. So yeah, that was the moment that I said, okay, I'm gonna pursue being a travel writer, mixing with the things I'm into, like poetry, fiction, and all that. And I've been doing that ever since.
It's very organic, right? Is that the right word? It's somewhat unintentional, and here you are, 12 books, and no football playing and no singing, but you're traveling, and you left Portugal, and you said that was an interesting story. At 23, you went to Barcelona from Portugal.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's a
eventually,
big move, right?
yeah, a big move. So it's a funny one because the first intent was to move to Dublin, where I end up. Yeah, what
Dublin,
happened
okay.
was there was a social media platform called High Five, which is like a predecessor of Facebook. And I was basically that. Sorry, Alexandra, for the topic. I was
What?
basically there looking for girls. No, I was single. No, and
Yeah.
that's what we all do. I was looking for girls there, and I started chatting to one, and I invited her for a drink. No, that's what you do. No, and she said I would love to, but I'm in Dublin. It's like, oh, how come you are in Dublin? She was Portuguese. I was like, how come you are in Dublin? How is that possible? She said, I got a job here and I moved here and I live here. That's simple. So we started talking. I remember her switching on the webcam in those old-fashioned cyber cafes. I was not even looking at her anymore. I was just looking at the place. Like, wow, a Portuguese person living abroad. That's possible. And she was just like a regular individual, no? So eventually, she told me, "Why don't you come here and for a few days, and if you like it, you stay, and you can get to know each other, blah blah blah." And that was about. I remember. I remember telling my family, my sister, my parents that I'm moving to Dublin. Never forget that dinner. So I'm at the table, and I say, we are eating, and all of a sudden I break the silence, and I say, "And you know what? I'm moving to Dublin." And my mom's reaction was, "Dublin? What is that? Where is that? What are you talking about?" She didn't know about Dublin. And my father, who is very realistic and conscious and all that, asked me, "Do you have a job? Is there employment? Why do you go there? And my sister, who knows me from inside out, asked me, what's her name?
Right.
So eventually, I'm nearly packing to go to Dublin. And back in the days, there was a message. It was not an app, but a message. What do you call it? A message. There was something called Messenger. Where you could message others. It's like a chat box, whatever. And and one day I see my good friend from university there. All of a sudden he was on mine, and he was living in Barcelona. And I said, oh, I haven't seen you for a while. How are you doing? How are things in Barcelona? Blah blah blah. And by the way, I'm also packing and starting a new life overseas. Oh, great! Where are you moving to? I'm moving to Dublin. And he reacted in a very, very unusual way. He said, why don't you stop here on the way? And I was like, on the way? And I look at the map, because not really on the way. Yeah, you can stop here. And I started asking, yeah, I would like to go there. Yeah, because here you can just get on the train and no need to fly, because I was very afraid of airplanes back then. And then we started talking more and more about life in Barcelona. I could settle there. I didn't need to get on an airplane. I knew the guy because we were mates in university, and this girl was just an online girl. And I was like, okay, don't be crazy. You don't know that girl. You need to get on an airplane. So maybe it's better to move to Barcelona. So I told the girl, sorry, I'm changing plans and I'm moving to Barcelona. Yeah, so that's how I end up in Barcelona. But after Barcelona, I moved to Dublin, and not because of her. Just so you know.
Right. Yeah. Did you ever catch up with her
I did.
later on?
Yes, I visited her, but she had a boyfriend when I visited her. But I knew
Good
it.
enough.
I knew it. We were just in touch. We just started to build a friendship. I visited her in Dublin. Actually, I came here for a week. That was one of my first international trips, and I absolutely fell in love not with her but with the place. And I said, I wanna spend more time in this country. And I'm deeply connected to Ireland. I cannot imagine myself anywhere else.
Oh, so this is it. Is this your last stop? Dublin? You think? Hard to say.
I'd say for the next at least 20 years, I don't imagine myself
Oh
elsewhere.
wow, 20
Yeah,
years.
I'm like, we bought an apartment, myself and my girlfriend. We bought an apartment. We live in a place called Bray, which is about 30 minutes away from Dublin. It's on the Irish coast. I'm literally 1 kilometer away from the sea, so I can listen to the seabirds, seeing them flying and all that. It's beautiful, and I can access the big city. I have all the nature, pubs, all the things I need to be a happy man here.
So
All right. So you did find romance. I'm sorry, Alexander, I'll let you go. But you did find romance. You're with a girlfriend, and now you're, according to us, sounds like you're 20 years. You're committed to staying there. And we'll see how it works out. Right? Is that
That's
it?
what that's what everyone says. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm sorry, Alexander. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask because you said that you arrived there and you realized that it's home, and that's actually something that I thought about a lot traveling, thinking that part of the reason why I was traveling was to sort of find that place that I could call home, that would just feel right. And so I just wanted to ask you, how did you come to the realization that that feels like home? Or was it a feeling? Was it like a more of a calculus where you realized, well, I have all of these opportunities and the costs are like this, and what was the, what made it, what sold it? Like, what was the thing that really made you say, well, this is home?
Yeah. So there's nothing in Ireland that I dislike, which is already good. Because most people have a complaint ready to be shared. No, there's nothing about Ireland that I detest. Even the weather. Even the weather. I'm okay with the weather, which is like I used to joke that I like more Ireland. I'm a bigger fan of Ireland than Irish people themselves. So this, what I like about here is I'm a big fan of the culture. I like the pub, what they call the pub crack, the interactions, the sense of humor, the positivity, the openness. So that's something that I'm very much into: live music, sports, all that. So I think the socials are unbeatable in Ireland.
Okay.
This is what my experience tells me. And then, other than the human, other than the human side of the house, the nature is just fantastic. Like you look around, those green hills, the Irish coast, um, everything, the animals, the sheep, the cows. I like that. So there is a good combination of urban and rural aspects that you can probably struggle to find elsewhere. So I like that harmony between things that are not always together.
But you didn't have this feeling of home when you was in Israel.
Well, that's a different home. Like that's more of a spiritual home. And actually, one thing I liked about Ireland is I don't particularly feel at home, which is a weird thing. And I'm trying to unpack that will make sense. Or if it, I'm trying to add some sense into it. So I would never ever feel that I'm part of this place, but I like that because it gives me the sense of traveling. Like they are very different from me, like say physically, culture, and all that. So Ireland offers me the travel adrenaline, but at the same time, I have no issue because I speak the language. I can get things done without hassle. Because that's one thing that when I lived in Hungary, in Poland, was fascinating at the start. The language barrier, because it was like an adventure. How I get this done, and I might use it as a technique to get to know a person that might help me to, I don't know, go through the bank contract and things like that. But after a while, it starts to be tiring because, like, paperwork, it's already a nightmare. And if you need to get someone to help you, it's 20 times worse. So, at some point, like if you are I recommend everyone that is listening to us to spend at least a year abroad, okay? And if possible, a second year in a place where they don't speak the language, because you will learn that you can get things done in a way that you will never think of, because you need to find ways around, and you become more flexible, patient, open. So there's a lot of positive aspects about that. Now, if you plan to settle in that country, you better learn the language because you'll be a second-class citizen. And it's not because I'm not saying like the people are racist. It's not that. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You don't speak the language, you are behind. No?
You're it's kind of showing that you're not wanting to integrate, I suppose.
Yes.
Right? And so for you, it wasn't really, you weren't necessarily looking, and you're still not looking for a place to settle per se, or rather you're trying to still escape this idea of settling, even though you're maybe spending a longer time in Ireland, you're still trying to perceive it or conserve it sort of in this, I don't know, aura of excitement, travel excitement, sort of.
Yes and no. Like we bought that apartment, so I think we are fully settled. I love the idea of traveling, and I love the idea of returning to this nest.
Okay.
So now the whole experience makes much more sense, because I lived in, I don't know, maybe 40 properties in my whole life. I'm 42. Okay, I'm revealing my age here, and probably lived like in 40 places. I can count them, but between 30 and 40. And that's quite a lot. And I remember traveling and then coming back, and it's not that I felt depressed, but there was something negative about returning, because I had to kind of adapt and adjust, because it was always like landlord's place. You cannot stick that on the wall. It's good to have that flexibility. I love it, and I highly recommend that to people who are just trying to find their own way in the road. So there's nothing wrong about it. But now I love the idea of when I land in Dublin airport, get on that couch, arrive here, my cat is at home. Sometimes I travel, my girlfriend doesn't, so she's at home. Um, it just makes everything more the way I desire, because it's like from A to Z, everything makes sense.
And so, to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, what would you say is like the biggest thing that you've learned, I guess, traveling like that? If there is one thing, I'm not really sure if you
One
can
thing,
narrow it
sorry,
down like that, but.
what do you mean by against travel?
Well, for instance, you mentioned that living in a country where you don't really speak the language, it's going to teach you that you can actually solve problems or find solutions to problems in a way where maybe you wouldn't have expected. So, what's something that really stands out in terms of like the lessons that you've learned traveling through so many places?
Yeah. So there's a fun fact about travel, that the road seems smaller, but at the same time seems bigger. Okay. It sounds like a paradox, what I'm saying. But what I mean by that is, like, when I was in the Emirates last year, uh, September, actually the year before, 23. I remember I was having breakfast at the hotel, and most people were either locals or Indians or from Southeast Asia, and they don't drink alcohol and all that, which is fine. But I really felt the that people were the same as we are, because bottom line, we're all humans. You just replace the pint with a coffee or the tea, and that's the same. I remember there's this expression in English that they say, you're having the last pint before leaving the pub, they say, one for the road, okay? They say that. And they were saying the same with the tea, and I never heard that. Okay, one for the road. You're not drinking alcohol, why say one for the road? Yeah, for the tea, why not? But it's the same logic. It's the same logic. People are the same. So that's not boring. It just tells that we shouldn't think of ourselves as separate tribes. I'm not being like the hippie pacifist here. It's just, we are all humans. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, that is bigger than we think, is that there are way more people in the world that we could ever imagine. Like, I remember being in an Indian wedding. I was in an Indian wedding December 23, yeah. And I was fascinated, because that was nothing I could ever imagine that would be part of my life. The traditions, the interactions, and things are so different that even my imagination cannot stretch. So there's plenty of discover, and as much as you travel, there'll be always room for novelty, and that's why you understand that the world is bigger than you think, even though we are more similar than we are told.
That's a great one. Sorry, just before I let you continue with your question, I was just gonna ask, what about inspiration? Is there a place that you've visited that's really been more, or that's proven to be, I guess, more, I don't know, where you felt more creative, or else you felt more inspired to write? Is there something that you really, I don't know, connected with at that level, where it really fed your creativity more than other places?
Creativity is a tricky one, because I don't think it's much related to what's happening, but how are you positioning yourself in the world? Okay, I think it's down to the creator and not as much to the surroundings. Okay, of course the environment has an impact, and it's not small, and it shouldn't be underestimated. But I take inspiration as being available to pursue a journey. Okay, so as much as the place is inspirational, if you are not on the mood, just to make it simple, it's irrelevant. Now, let's try to make it simple. There are places that for sure that boost my inspiration more than others. Ireland is for sure one. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. No? Like especially the nature. And because as I said in the beginning with Portugal, I love to be by the sea when I'm the only one, or it's myself and a couple more. And because of the weather, not everyone dares to walk on a windy, wet day by the seaside. And I do, and I'm not playing the brave. I'm just crazy. So I love that. I love that. For sure, the Irish landscape is one of the most inspirational one I've ever experienced, and even inside a pub, because the thing is, the beauty of a pub. I mean, the beauty of a pub is we could be here for another episode, but the beauty of a pub is that you can be yourself, and no one will give a damn. Okay, because that's how Irish people are. They don't care. You can be the most eccentric individual in the human history, and no one will pay attention to you. Or if they do, it's with a genuine interest. They're going to ask you questions, but they're not going to judge you. Like you can. I remember my good Brazilian friend visited me last summer. We went to that pub here where I live, by the sea, where only locals go, and locals, like say, they all, or the majority are all 50, 60 plus. And no one cared. We arrived there, two foreign guys, our accents, our outfits and all that. And no one cared. We ordered our pints, we sat. Like in other countries, even Portugal, if you go to a place where only locals go, you may feel intimidated. Not necessarily threatened, but not that comfortable as you would here. But here it's just free pass. Just sit and have your drink, and maybe if you are on your own, maybe you have a chat with someone, and they're going to tell you a couple of jokes, you're going to laugh. That's great. And if you want to be on your own, just you'll be on your own. It's fine.
So I was sharing our podcast with some colleagues at work. One of the guys is Portuguese, and when I told him we had a Portuguese guest this week, he insisted that I ask you, because you said you were from a commuter town close to Lisbon. So he insisted that I ask you what you know about Barreiro. It's where he's from.
No way. I'm from there myself. I'm joking. He's from
No, really?
there.
Yeah.
Maybe I know him. Yeah,
Probably.
Maybe I know him. I know, and I hope it's not a bad thing that we know each other. Yeah, I mean, I know that place. I was born there. Seriously, I'm seriously. I was born there. I lived there till the age of 23. What I can tell is, it's what I call the labor town or labor city, and it's where the working class lives, because properties are cheaper. You can easily commute every day, and it has a strong identity. But there is something about labor towns. I lived in Poland, and I lived in Katowice for 6 months, and it was very similar to my hometown, because it's very much industrial, and then there is a big underground scene when it comes to music, arts, and all that, and also some politics, which for me is the saddest part. But anyway, yeah, so that's a place that relied a lot in industry. Over the last maybe 10, 20 years, it's not as much authentic as it was, because more people moved there just because the cost of living is affordable. So there's not much this thing of, I'm from there and I'm so proud of that. Like my sister has all that. My sister's a big Barreiro fan. She would, if you say something bad about Barreiro, she would go mad. I mean, I can guarantee you, because I did that myself just to see it. But I like it. I think it's not a bad place to grow up. We can access Lisbon, in 20, 30 minutes. Actually, that's a funny one, because it's travel related. I lived 10 minutes away from the ferry port to Lisbon. Okay, so I could get to Lisbon city center faster than most people who live in other parts of Lisbon. And I remember, and other than the ferry port, there is also a train station, bus station, and yeah, and next to it, back in the days when I lived there was a coffee shop, and I used to sit on those on those tables on the outdoor area when I was maybe like 20 or something like that. And I remember, and the travel bug was nowhere in my soul, okay? But I remember, maybe that was the beginning, being seated there trying to write poetry that luckily I throw it out. And I remember being sitting there and staring at the train, the train, the ferry boat, and the bus at the same time, and being amused with the with the movement. And sometimes there was an airplane. That was sometimes. So I think my travel bug. I know you didn't ask that, but I think my travel bug is also related to the fact that I grew up in that neighborhood.
As you said, it's a small world.
Yeah. What's his name?
Pedro Gomez. Pedro Bico, sorry.
Yeah. Can't think of anyone with that name now.
So when I was in Portugal, I like to talk about unique things. So when I was in Portugal, it was in June, so there was a festival going on, and everyone was outside eating with the family and music playing. It's the first time I've seen something like this. The whole street was outside eating.
Yeah. I think the reason is the weather, because like we get like Lisbon at least. I think it's the capital with more days of sunshine per year, and that's something to be envy of. Because I don't complain about Irish weather, but there's one thing I miss sometimes is sunshine. I'm okay with the cold. I don't mind. You just put a jacket or have a few drinks, and you are fine. But the sunshine is unbeatable. I think sunshine is it's an energizer by itself. Like you just expose yourself to the sun, and you immediately feel better. Just the sunshine. I'm not talking about heat. That's a different story. I hate the heat, but I'm a big fan of sunshine. There's something about it. I think it's like when you stare at the sky and the sky is open for you. You know, it's kind of time to pay attention. So it's a blessing, and Portugal can claim that they are privileged in that regard.
There is such a difference in just in your mood and in the way that you perceive the world. You know, when you live in a place like Athens or Lisbon, or a place that gets a lot of sunshine, versus living somewhere, you know, more further north, where even during summer you're just not getting the same intensity, you know, the same sunlight intensity, and it kind of affects everything. Like, not in a way, you know, not that you get depressed or anything, but it just has an impact on the way that you see the world. And there was I forget who, but a French philosopher, existentialist, maybe Camus, I'm not really sure. Who said that probably the difference between, you know, like German philosophy and Greek philosophy can also be, you know, traced back to like the difference in like the weather and the sunlight, because, you know, like you get with the Greek philosophers, you get this like clarity of thought, and, you know, a lot of I guess, well, I'm not really sure how he described it, but you get the gist. And then with the, you know, with the German philosophy, you get like this more serious, somber mood, right?
Yeah, for sure. It impacts the mood, and you can even go further if you think about Kierkegaard in Denmark. He was the most depressive philosopher of history, or Schopenhauer in Germany. Now, I'm a big fan of all them, even though they are dark. Like, my favorite is Nietzsche, which is also German. I was very much into Nietzsche myself. I'm still being Nietzsche fan. Not that I agree with everything he says, okay, but I think first his writing is just fantastic. It's poetry. It's not necessarily philosophy. It's poetry, and his message is as strong as it can be. So I will be a big Nietzsche fan myself, but just going back to that, it impacts is good. But one thing that we need to keep in mind is the weather. There's a weather that is, let's say, appropriate when you are on holidays and traveling, and I don't know when you are working.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awful, absolutely awful. If you need to be in an office with 35 degrees, okay, and you are just sweating, and you feel like, yeah, it's nice for the tourists out there, but for me, not not as much. So true that it's positive, but if you are exposed, and then another thing, if you are exposed to that all the time, it's not the same joy
Right.
anymore, like everything else in life. If it becomes routine,
Right.
it
But
becomes boring.
as a writer, do you, because you mentioned earlier that, to be creative or to access that part of your brain, you have to allow yourself to be impacted by the things that surround you, or not necessarily to be impacted, but to be open to receiving, I suppose, that influence of the things that you're maybe seeing, experiencing, the people you're meeting, whatever the case may be. So would you say that there's, well, not necessarily weather, but is there any other element, could be weather, could be something else, that really you feel that you're more open to and that has a greater influence on your writing?
Yeah, I think I wrote it once, like if you want to meet yourself, go for a walk.
In
Yes.
silence,
Yeah,
right?
Right.
you
That's the
show up.
one too.
You show up. Yeah, you show up at some point. Just go for a walk without any specific purpose. Go for a walk of. It doesn't need to be an hour. Let's say 20 minutes. 20 minutes should be enough. You show up. Don't look at the phone. Okay. You can bring the phone just in case. That's fine. But don't look at the phone. Just go for a walk. Find a park or I don't know some area where you can be in peace or it's relatively quiet. Let's say like I have a local park. I love it, and I have the seaside, and I love it the same way. So if I wanna if I wanna connect to my core, that's what I do. I just go for a walk and focus on focus on myself, and I'm sure there will be a message coming at some point, and that message is going to be revealing because it's already in me. Just I didn't have the capacity to be open to it. So going for a walk is therapeutic. Like I, I would say less pills and tablets and more walks.
Right. Vitor, that's brilliant. It's a great way to close this show. We've been talking for over an hour now.
But the
It's gone very fast.
pharmaceuticals are going after me. The
Let's,
pharmaceuticals are. The pharmaceutical companies are going after me. If I say less pills, less tablets,
right, right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
the
But
Pfizer's
yeah,
of this world are going to I don't know send some bad energy to me. Yeah.
no, 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 no. No, you definitely meet yourself when you go for a walk. I walk all the time, and the longer you walk, the quieter it is, the more you talk to yourself and you listen to yourself, and you start revealing things. Like you said, it's amazing, and the truth comes out. And it's we don't do it enough here in the United States. I don't know about the rest of the world, but that's a very wise thing, a way to wise thing to say, and a very good way to bring this to an end. We have so much more to talk to you about. Hopefully, we will meet again.
Sure.
And but until then, tell us about your podcast, the name of it, where we could find it,
Yeah.
and whatever else you want to tell us. And after the show, you can share with Luke all your links. And I'm going to give him a lot of work to do. He will post it in the show notes because he's good at that, and we can all listen into your experiences and read your books. So go ahead, tell us about your podcast.
Yeah. So my podcast is called The Witty Vitor, and it started as interviews, just basically like one-on-one interviews. I was interviewing people. Uh, I focus on individuals that I find inspirational. So it doesn't matter if they're into arts or business or sports, whatever fits my umbrella of interest. That's already a good deal. So that's how I started. I interviewed people for a year, and over the last weeks, I've developed other formats. So what I do now, in addition to the interviews, because I haven't really gave up on that, I started to come up with topics, and then I bring a panel. So let's say one thing I have in mind is let's talk about life after death, for instance. That's something that everyone thought about it in their life. It's impossible not to. So let's talk about it. Or some I don't know. The other day we talked about in the United States. We talk even political stuff. We talk first month of Trump 2.0, what he did well, what he did wrong. So We also discussed that. I also initiated one on Irish football. So it's very broad. So it's mostly travel, arts, football, politics, Israel, dating. So everything that matches my scope of interest, I discuss with others. So I invite people to come along. Is the witty Vitor. It's on YouTube. So it's very simple to find, and people can have a listen. I'll be pleased.
You go.
Sounds good. The weekly. I'm sorry, Alexander. The weekly Vitor.
Yes,
The
The
witty,
weekly V.
witty.
Right.
Victor.
Yeah.
Witty,
Keep on. Weekly. Is that what I said? Weekly.
witty.
Oh, the witty Vitor. All right, moderate hearing loss. Vitor, I was into heavy metal too for way too long. Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Metallica. It's terrible. It's terrible. My apologies to you. All right, the witty Vitor, and it's weekly, monthly,
Yes,
daily, whatever you want.
it's weekly, and I'm now expanding to 2 or 3 times a week.
All right, and it's audio, video. You find that on YouTube,
Yeah, it's on
and
video.
sometimes you have panels and all that. Sounds great. I look forward to checking it out. Luke will post a link. Alexandra, one last thing, and then I think we're gonna say goodbye.
No, I was just about to say that you only go for the big stuff, like all of the things that you mentioned. You don't waste time with unimportant things. You only discuss the big topics.
Yes, yes, yeah, because there are topics that you cannot avoid. Like life
Right.
after death.
That one for sure you cannot avoid.
Right. Right.
Maybe I can have you on board for that.
For life after that. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. I don't know if I have a better perspective than any other living human being.
No,
But
what I would say about that actually just came to my mind as we were talking.
no, I'd love to.
We all
I'd love to. Sure.
like no one knows that there is life after death, but most people are not experiencing life before death, and that's all that is.
And we can talk about that in your future podcast.
Yeah,
There you go. Life
is there a
before death.
life before death?
That's
For some
fantastic.
there is, for others, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a different type of life. That's great. That's great, Vitor. The witty Vitor. I'm glad I got it right before we say goodbye. Luke, it's up to you to close this up. And for everybody, please just stick around after he hits the off button because we have to upload this. I have 99% uploading. I don't know what anybody else is seeing. It seems to be going pretty fast. But if you leave too soon, it messes everything up, right? So that's a weird thing about Riverside. We have to talk about this every week. I don't know how we do this. But Luke,
I haven't used it myself. I usually explore StreamYard. I'm not
yeah,
like advertising StreamYard myself, but
yeah,
it's very straightforward.
yeah,
Yeah, if you
I
want
hear
to
you.
give it a try, yeah.
All right. Well, don't mention the competition. We'll get in a lot of trouble. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. So, Luke, it's up to you. Alexandra, it was good to see you. Vitor, it was nice to meet you and see you. Luke,
Likewise.
I hand it over to you.
So that's a nice way to end because, as Vita said, people don't experience life before death. So it's a whole circle. It comes back to travelling again. So thank you, everyone. It was a good show this week, and have a good rest of your week.
We'll see you next week.
See you
Cheers,
next
guys.
week.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.